Crap. Looks like I'm not getting into that closet easily. I need to find my keys, but they're somewhere in this godforsaken studio. I guess that's first order of business.
17 years later. Sunday, April 13th, 1963. It was a nice and sunny day outside for Archgate Pictures. However, inside, sitting in a desk, was a 56-year-old artist drawing random doodles. That was until there was a knock at the door. Max was 5'9". He wore blue jeans, a pair of brown shoes, a white undershirt, and a brown golf shirt.
Come in,
Max said. An old man walked into the room holding a letter with the iconic Benji stamp on it.
It's for you, Max.
The old man started wheezing after he said that.
Oh, Wilson. I didn't expect to see you today.
Max said before taking the letter.
Well, I better get back to work.
Wilson said, walking off somewhere, though Max didn't care about that right now. What mattered to him was the yellowed letter. Max opened and read it.
Dear Max, it seems like a lifetime since you've worked on the cartoons here at the studio. 17 years.
17 years really slipped by, doesn't it? I know when we last talked we didn't leave on pleasant terms, but if you're back in town, come visit the old workshop. There's something I need to show you. Your best pal, Joey Drew.
Max had merely almost forgotten working there. It had honestly taken him by surprise. While Max wanted nothing to do with Joey, a part of him wanted to see what this something was that Joey wanted to show him. As well as the fact he also wanted to see Sammy. That was if he was still there. Though, however, before he could do that, though he would have to talk to his boss, Nathan Arch. Walking down the hall of Archgate Pictures, Max could hear a few things here and there, pencils being dragged against paper, feet tapping on checkered floor, and a little bit of talking here and there. He stopped outside of an office where inside he could hear his boss, Nathan Arch, as well as a young woman talking with each other. After a while, she left his boss's office smiling at the 5'9" artist as she walked by. Max didn't know her as well as his boss, though. Max knocked on the door of his boss's office.
Come in.
Another old man said, though this time it wasn't Wilson, but rather his boss. Max turned the doorknob and opened the door, stepping inside the room, closing the door behind him. Then he took a seat in front of the desk, his boss's desk.
Oh, Max, it's great to see you again.
Nathan said as he saw who it was.
Same to you, Mr. Arch.
Max said, happy, really this time. He was happy to see his boss, and unlike Joey, who was an asshole to him.
So, what brings you here, my friend?
Max hadn't gotten that far in his plan. However, he was going to tell his boss a lie. But was it really a lie when in fact it was the truth?
I'm going to be away for the next few days. I have a family member moving in with my mom and dad, and I need to be there to help them.
Max said to his boss.
Well then, you go off. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay, I'll see you then. You're going back there?
An old woman, Max's mother, Beth, said, losing her mind.
I don't see it as a big deal, as long as you come back safely, that is.
An old man, Max's father, Jeremy, said okay with it.
Just let it go, Beth.
Another old woman beside said woman, Max's aunt, Sydney, said, seeing no problems with it as well.
I'm sorry, I have to go. It just came out of the blue.
Max said, feeling bad.
Okay then, just be safe, and I love you, son.
Beth said to the 5'9" artist.
Good luck, Max.
Jeremy said to his son. A battery pack, a few cords, Max's phone, a notebook, A few pen and pencils, an art book, a few snacks for here and there, and a change of clothes for when the pipe started acting up, were all the things that got packed into his backpack. Max grabbed his bag and headed out to his car. The drive took about 25 to 30 minutes, though the old studio looked like it would fall apart at any moment. But there was no going back now. Max grabbed the doorknob and opened it, stepping into the hallway.
Alright, Joey, I'm here. Let's see what you wanted me to find.
And with that, the return to hell and back had just begun. Max stepped into the lobby. While looking around, one thing he knew was that his desk and office, as well as the artist's room, was to the left of him. All the while, the theater room and break room were to the right of him. He went into the left hallway first, walking till he got to Henry's desk.
An old art desk. Looks like someone wasted their time in this chair in the past.
Turning to look behind him, Max stepped into the room across from Henry's desk.
Ah, here's a place I know all too well.
Indeed, the room was as Max had remembered back in 1946. Even the entrance to Max's office was as he had remembered. Though Max wanted to look around first before he went to his old office. Max walked back to the hallway and into the main lobby before he walked off in the right hallway. Just as Max had turned the corner, a shiver went down his spine. There in front of him on the wall made his blood go cold.
Dreams come true? What the hell?
Max said calmly to himself. He went back to walking down the hall. He looked up at the sign as he got to the end of the hallway.
Ink machine? What the hell is an ink machine?
Max turned right, hopping over the pipe, and entered the ink machine room. It was a barn, but instead of housed this supposed ink machine, he was on a balcony along with the machine that Max guessed would lift this ink machine. However, before he could pull the lever, he needed to find 2 dry cell batteries for this machine. He found one on the shelf to his left, grabbing it and then putting it in its place.
One down, one more to go.
Max said to himself as he looked for the other battery. He found it, after searching for it for about 5 minutes. Max had put the second battery in its place. He just needed to pull the lever now.
Let's see what you're hiding down there, Joey.
Max said as he pulled the lever down. The chain started moving, as did the creak and screeches. It wasn't until a minute later that the machine had revealed itself to be a golden yellow boxy machine with a large black tank on the back.
So this is the ink machine? I wonder how you turn it on.
Max left the room and went down to the gated hallway that had opened to his right. Max entered the hallway and went right. He knew where he was in this part of the studio. Max kept walking until he got into a fork in the path. To his right was a break room, or as Joey liked to call it for some fucked up reason, the offering room. To the left of him was a work area. Max walked in, horror and disgust written on his face. There was a dead Boris clone with his chest ripped open for the world to see. What made it worse was the fact there was a wrench wedged in his chest.
What the fuck are you doing, Joey?
Max quickly ran out of the room and walked into the break room.
6 items for this damn machine to work? Ha! Easy.
Max's face fell as he saw the picture with this wrench on it.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me.
The 5'9" artist yelled at himself. Max walked out of the room and got scared by a cutout that popped out of absolutely nowhere. He punched the damn thing, breaking it. Max put a hand on his chest near his heart.
Who the hell put this here? I'm sorry, but I have to do this for us.
Max said, pulling out the wrench from the dead clone's chest. Max wanted to gag, but alas, the horrors were done. For now, anyways. He went back to the ink machine room to grab the cog he had found when he found the second battery. After he grabbed it, he went to go look in the lunchroom. He, Wally, and Sammy were in back 1946. That was one thing Max missed. Sammy. He didn't know why. Once he had gone downstairs, He was flooded with memories from 1946, but he shook his head. He had a job to do first. He found and grabbed the book on the table with the other books. All he just needed now was a bendy plush, an inkwell from his office, and Sammy's records. Max walked from the door of the lunchroom and up to the room Sammy used when his office and department were flooded. The light from under the door had turned off as soon as Max put his hand on the doorknob, causing Max to jump a little. He slowly opened the door. Stepping in, however, he was alone. Although he could have sworn he had heard breathing behind the door, he brushed off as the heater. He had found Sammy's record on the floor, leaning against the desk. When he got back up, he noticed a piece of paper with writing on it. He will set us free. Max felt awed by that.
Who is he? Never mind that. I'm going crazy.
Max said to himself. He was now heading to his office to pick up the inkwell. His inkwell. As he opened the door and stepped into his office, the table and a couch were by the door. There were 5 file cabinets lined along the wall to the left. An art desk with an inkwell sitting on the lower part of the desk. That was on the right side of the room, while there was a round table in the middle of the room. Max walked up to the art desk, picked up the inkwell, heading back out to the door before he saw an audio log on the table by his office door. He pressed play, listening to his younger voice.
This is Maxwell Matthews, head of the animation department. Today's date is May 14th, 1946. When you're an artist, an animator, you're expected to help fulfill the visions. Though Joey's countless dreams, it really makes you want to rip your hairs out. But since my job as an animator, I'm expected not to run my mouth off about Mr. Drew. But really, how can I not? When Mr. Drew brought in this stupid ink machine, has plans, big plans, for a Disneyland knockoff park for Bendy and pals. And on top of that, poor Wally has to clean up like 10 times more of the mess that these stupid pipes make. And the worst thing about this all, Joey still hasn't fixed those stupid pipes on my desk. So, well, then. I'm prepared to resign and leave the studio within the hour. End of log number 3. That makes 5. One more to go.
Max said as he placed the object on the pedestals. Max walked out of the break room and headed down the hallway to the theater room. The room itself was a small one. A few chairs here and there, a projector on a little table, and some machinery with a valve on said machinery. The doll was on a chair closest to the entrance of the theater.
Okay. That's all of them.
Max was getting closer to seeing what Joey wanted to show him and go home. Max was now walking back to the break room with the doll in his hands. Once he made it back, he placed the doll on the pedestal. He walked up for the main power. A flashing light on the words saying low power were showing itself, making Max groan. Max started heading back to the theater room. Along the way there, he got scared by a bendy cutout. Again, the 5'9" artist glared at the cutout before entering the theater room. It seemed like the projector had a mind of its own. It started playing one of them old cartoons from the 40s. Max walked back to the room, facing the machinery, with the valve that had a sign above that said flow. Max turned the valve until it had abruptly stopped. The pipe in that room had burst open, and it flooded the room in ink. Max had gotten PTSD from it, which he blamed it on the pipe. However, it brought him back to December 1946, just a month before he left. Monday, April 3rd, 1946. Max forced himself to draw the last few frames of animation. Every passing minute, the pipes would make sounds like they were under pressure. Max carefully eyed it while also focusing on his work. It wasn't until a minute or two had passed that the pipe conveniently gave up and bursted in Max's face, covering the poor man and a bit of his shirt in ink. a worker said not too far away. Max stood up and backed away from his desk, all while grabbing the top of his shirt and rubbing his face, getting the ink off his face. To say Max was mad was an understatement. He was pissed. And that was the third time this month this happened to him. On top of that, he still had 80 pages to go. He shook his head. He could now pull the main power lever and go home. On the way back, he noticed another audio log sitting on the table. Without thinking, he pressed play on the new log, making him smile when he heard the voice. At this point, I don't get what Joe's plan is for the company. The animations sure aren't being finished on time anymore. And I certainly don't see why we need this machine. It's noisy, it's messy, and who needs that much ink anyway? Also, get this. Joey had each one of us donate something from our workstation. Put them on these little pedestals in the break room. To help appease the gods, Joey says. Keep things going. I think he's lost his mind. But hey, he writes checks. But I tell you what. If one more of these pipes burst, I'm out of here.
That's Wally, alright.
Max said, chuckling to himself as he walked back to the break room. As he got to the fork in the path, he noticed how the bendy cutout he had knocked out was missing.
Where the hell did it go?
Max said calmly with a hint of horror in his voice. Max walked into the break room, into the back of the room to where the main power lever was. Once he got there, he pulled the lever, turning this ink machine on. The lights in the studio went dim, not dark enough to the point that Max couldn't see. Max walked out of the break room and down the fork in the path and toward the gate entrance by the ink machine room. Max entered the machine room hallway and stepped over the pipe on the floor for a third time. Once he got to the entrance of the ink machine room.
What?
Max said as he noticed the entrance was boarded up with the openings in between the boards. He had placed his hands on the middle boards, trying to kick down the bottom ones, only to notice that there were inky boot prints going from the entrance to the ink machine room down the hallway. Max tried to follow them. Keyword tried. He couldn't. Someone grabbed him. Max turned his head toward the boarded up entrance. His eyes widened in fear. It was no human. No. It was the little dancing demon he had drawn along with so many other artists almost 17 years ago. Or he once. Without thinking, Max bit the demon's hand and it pulled said hand away from Max's arm as its other arm grabbed it to make sure it was okay, all while it roared out in pain. It turned to look at the 5'9" artist, only to notice that he was long gone. It growled before it phased through a wall. Max was running down the hallway of the studio. The studio began to fall apart around him and flood with ink. Max had ran to the main entrance of the studio until he saw the condition in the front main entrance.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Max said, instead of ran to the door of the basement and ran down the stairs. And down to the basement door, however, it was blocked by stuff. On the other side, Max didn't care though. His life right now was on the line. He bashed his body against the door over and over again until it finally opened, knocking the stuff on the other side down along the door and its hinges. The basement itself was flooded. It was up to Max's kneecaps. Max noticed that there was a valve on a pipe. Putting two and two together, he walked up into the said valve and turned it, draining the ink on the level he was on. Max had done a second time, going down the stairs till he got to the bottom of the basement. He would have to wade in the ink, but at this point, he just didn't care anymore. After all, he just wanted to go home. Max walked to a third valve, turning it and draining ink out of the bottom of the basement's level. After that, Max walked up to a boarded door. He opened the door, stepped inside this room. His path ahead of him was boarded up.
Oh, for God's sake. If only there was a bingo.
Max yelled to himself as his eyes landed on an axe on top of a workbench. He picked up the tool and started taking the boards blocking his path down. He had gotten to the point where he just needed to take down the 3 boards that were blocking him to the entrance of a door that would lead to the room in between here and the staircase to utility shaft 9, on the other side of the boarded door. He made easy work of it and opened the door. His eyes widened, not in fear but rather concern.
What were you thinking, Joey?
Max said as he looked around. There were 3 coffins, a pentagram in the middle, and a chair to the left of the room. As soon as Max's foot touched the said pentagram, he collapsed on the ground on his hands as his mind began to race. He heard voices echoing through his head.
What's here? Này, đi xuống rồi. Đó, nó vẫn bút. Xíu nè, nhiều vui chứ. Hay.
The name of Wait a minute, I'm doing that. That's certainly all I am on it. Nobody. Oh, sweetheart, where fell it down?
Hang in, Roy.
Oh, you know. Oh, you know. You know. There's no way. Ja, das ist nicht rein, was das muss. Aber nicht jetzt mal durch.
Everything went dark, but a voice that Max heard faintly, but knew all too well, cut through the silence like a knife. Rest your head. It's time for bed. In the morning you may wake, or in the morning, you'll be dead. Max fell fully unconscious,